Welcome to Soul Quest. I'm here, delighted to be with Mike Williamson, who I'm meeting face to face online right now. And it's already been super fun. So, Mike, thank you so much for receiving my invitation and coming on this podcast.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. Thank you.
Yay. So, I'm looking forward to getting to know more about your journey. So, let's start with, where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I grew up in Central Illinois. I would say I generally had a happy childhood. It was a small town. It was Springfield, Illinois is the capital. There's like 100,000 people there. So like all these tiny little towns are effectively like suburbs of that. And I grew up heavily in the church. My mom was really in the church. My dad was an atheist, but both me and my brother were like very active in the church. I wanted
Wow.
to be a missionary because I thought everyone that had not heard about Jesus Christ was going to hell. So I felt like that was my mission to spread the word of Jesus so everybody could go to heaven, you know. And yeah, and then my freshman year, we moved to a different small town that was a little bit more like I had neighbors who were farmers and yeah,
Wow.
my dad was a big outdoorsman, so he had like 60 acres of woods and you couldn't walk 100 yards without seeing deer tracks. We had a
Oh, wow.
pond in the back and we built a rope swing and stuff. So it was always a fun place to go home to and really friendly people. A lot of people didn't lock their doors. I was in high school. Nobody had a
Nice.
lock on their locker. There was like 120 kids in my high school. Everybody knew everybody. Nobody got cut from sports teams. You kind of
Wow.
do what you wanted. And yeah, I was told a buddy of mine worked for a professional baseball player who had some interaction with him. I remember him telling me one time, said, man, you guys from Virginia, this small town, he's like, you have such big balls. He's like, for no particular reason. Yeah. Like if you could make it in Illinois, you can make it anywhere.
Wow, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it was very, very different than people I met when I went to school and up by Chicago. You know, they had these ideas, and you can't play basketball unless you're over 6 feet tall and black, and or hey, you can't do this, you can't do that. Nobody ever told us we didn't do stuff. You know, I was the
Interest
same size now. I was like 160, 165 pounds. I was playing linebacker in high school.
Wow.
You go up to
Oh,
college, like you got to be like 240.
wow. Interesting. So what caught my attention is that your dad was an atheist, your mom was into church. So how did that marriage work?
Well, yeah, I mean, for sure, my mom's a saint, but my dad was a great man. I mean, don't get me wrong, and that actually shifted for him. I think he was about 44. He had some major heart issues and independent quadruple bypass, and
Oh, wow.
kind of decided that was a sign from God. And he was getting ready to go to Alaska, and my mom like wanted them to do some feedback. Sounded really wild.
I know.
You hearing that?
Yeah. Weird. It sounds like a bunch of crickets.
Yeah, really
Interesting.
loud.
Maybe we're getting visited by some galactic beings or something.
Well,
I don't know.
now it's dying down again.
Oh, yeah, interesting. Okay. So your dad went through a hard time and then he turned over to God?
Boy, he was supposed to be going to Alaska, and he was going to be like in the middle of nowhere. And my mom was a nurse, and she was like, "Hey, before you go on this trip, like let's get your heart checked out." And then he went on a treadmill and basically almost had a heart attack going on
Oh,
this
wow.
treadmill. And so then they said, "Hey, you're not going anywhere." And then they did a quadruple bypass, which I don't think they do anymore. But yeah, he lived another 30 years after that. But he felt like that was a sign from God. And after that, he started going to church, and that this big shift for him. And it
Wow.
did make him kind of chill out a little bit. He was a little bit high strung, or kind of let things bother him that, yeah, he didn't have to let it bother him. I think he realized, like, hey, that's not good for my health and stuff. But he was always super active, but never exercised for the sake of exercising or something. It would be where he was hunting or
Yeah.
doing some of his.
All right. So it sounds like you had a really good childhood.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, my family's amazing. Everybody,
Oh,
you're honest. They everything. If they say they're gonna do something, we're gonna do it. Um, my brother and I were like 5 years apart, but we're very close. I mean, he's one of my best friends, and
Aw.
in general, I mean, I hang out with my family. I always feel energized, and everybody's always very supportive. But
Mhm.
everybody also always kind of had their own stuff going on, their own hobbies, and I think my parents were good about raising us to kind of be independent and supportive of whatever we wanted to go into.
Oh, that's great. So then you moved to Chicago, or you went.
I went to school up by there. It was like
Okay.
an hour and a half outside of Chicago, and then once I graduated school, I moved into the state. So I was there for 15 years, but a lot of my like all my close friends from college, everything are still there. So it was a great place to be, and I loved it. But yeah, after a while, I moved to Austin to kind of be close to their family, and I like learning spaces and stuff. So it was
So you have
opportunities.
family in Aus.
Well, my parents were down here after I did, and my brother's been out here since like '95, and
Oh, nice.
he's got a family. He's married his high school sweetheart. Mhm.
All right. So, well, that's cool. So your family, so you don't have any, I mean, I saw one of your posts on Instagram or Facebook that you were in Chicago. I've never been there. I have one friend that loves it and one friend that lived there and hates it.
I liked it. I feel like people that grew up around Chicago,
Uh-huh.
that's the city. Like that's the coolest thing happening in the Midwest. So people that grew up
Yeah.
around there kind of aspire to like they visit it, like, oh wow, there's not many places you can go in the world, I'd say, but like certainly not in the US where you have that kind of skyline. I mean, New
Yeah.
York's a lot bigger and has this big gorgeous skyline, but other cities, once you get used to Chicago, other cities kind of feel small because there is such a big downtown. And days
Uh-huh.
before Uber, you could still get a cab around. There's not a ton of cities that are like that. We could just hail a cab and stuff. Like
Yeah.
it's a very urban environment. You could get by without a car if you wanted to. But and also again, like kind of old school days before the internet, like there's the Michigan Avenue, we have all these shops and stuff. I mean, now
Mhm.
it's kind of you order whatever online. So some of those things lost some of their shine in some ways.
Yeah.
But I don't know, it's a different vibe being in Chicago too versus like New York or LA. Cause like I feel like in California, to some degree, people are kind of blowing some sunshine up your ass.
Yeah.
In New York, there's kind of an edge to it. It could feel a little bit aggressive at
Uh-huh.
times on the East Coast. And I feel like the Midwest is like a playful mix of both of those. But Chicago
Uh-huh.
definitely has some edge to it. And
Okay.
I have found that has softened as I've been in Austin and realized like not everybody's trying to screw me or, or trick me in some way. I grew up in a small town. I was definitely naive entering the city. After
Yeah.
15 years, I was kind of hardened where, hey, like I don't feel sorry for homeless people or
Yeah.
the way that I used to. Like I used
Yeah.
to walk into work and every single time I saw a homeless person, I'd give them $1. So I'm like, man, I'm giving away like $15, $20 a day. Like, and I'm seeing the exact same people in the exact same places. Like
Yeah.
I'm not helping anybody with this and I'm going to go broke. And then
Uh-huh.
after a while, and it's like, well, maybe if they're playing music, I'll give them $1 or something. And then
Mhm.
now it's more just if somebody's really old, I might give them something. So I'm like, yeah, if they're that old, they're probably not changing anyways. But
Yeah,
in
that's true.
general, it's like I don't want to reward that behavior.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a hard situation to know what to do in those cases. When you moved to Austin, did I grew up in Houston, so when I moved to Austin, I remember thinking, "Oh my gosh, everyone is so friendly here." Did you think that?
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Except at first I go walk around the grocery store and I'm like picking something off the shelf. Somebody's like, have you tried that before? And I'm like, when are you getting ready to ask me or try to sell me something? Or like even the people just checking it out, they're super friendly. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait for like, you're gonna ask me to donate money. It's like I'm being set up for you to ask me for something. And
Yeah.
that wasn't nice. They just took a little while that, oh, people are just being nice. Like,
I
yeah,
know.
I'm an a-hole because I'm assuming everybody's got some kind of hidden motive, but it felt like that was just like just for being in Chicago and having. I remember going to a gas station like my first job out of school, and I'm wearing like a real cheap suit for some outside sales job I had, and some guy came up to me like, "Hey man, like I ran out of gas. I just need $5 or blah blah blah." And I gave it. I'd never had someone come up and say that to me before. I'm like, "Oh wow, that sucks." So I'm like, "Yeah, I gave this guy $5." Like the very next time I would fill gas and somebody else come up and say the exact same thing, I'm like, what are the chances
Yeah.
Suddenly it happens magically, and I realized, like, yeah, like I just look like a sucker. It's just this baby face kid. Like, oh, that guy give us $5. But I
Yeah,
still,
I've heard that became a norm. People asking for gas money. It hasn't happened to me yet.
right? Never
Yeah.
happened to me an officer. Not that I could think of. I don't know. I
I've
any more. Yeah, this thing. Like I said, I've grown cold to what's a once bit, twice shy.
yeah,
Well,
yeah. I know that's kind of stuff happens a lot in Houston. But I mean, I live on the outskirts of where do you live in Austin?
Leander.
Okay. I live in Bastrop, so there's not a lot of that happening around here, but I know like in downtown it does happen more. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, certainly I get approached by homeless people or something.
Mhm.
The last time I remember, there's a ton of homeless people out in Austin.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's pretty crowded. For a while, it got real bad when they were just letting people camp out
Oh
anywhere.
my gosh. Yeah.
They
I know.
changed the rules, and that was kind of getting freaky because you'd be under an underpass or something, like even in the suburbs, and there'd just be like these
Tents
encampments
everywhere.
for homeless
Yeah.
people there, and it's like French people don't feel like they have much to lose, and like they're right there, and just being like, I don't know, it was, I know, it freaked out a lot of
Yeah.
people, and then enough people complained, and they changed it, but.
Yeah, I know. I was sad when I saw that. I was like, well, this is changing the whole downtown experience here.
Well,
But yeah.
there's no public restrooms and stuff. And
Yeah.
that's half the thing. But even if you start to create an encampment now, like somebody gets assaulted or whatever, like now the police have to go in there and try to go figure out what's going on. Like there's all these people that might have drug issues or other things. I mean, it's a nightmare. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what they could do. Maybe they could send a film crew down there and raise some money out of it. They could be, but
Yeah.
I'll pay
Yeah.
for housing. I don't know what they
Yeah.
would do.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
always different.
it's a problem. I have heard there's a lot of places it's better to pay for housing at times than it is to try to police all the problems that come out of it.
Hmm.
I don't know what the solution is.
Yeah, I know. That's a hard one for sure. All right. Well, let's talk about, well, first of all, I forgot to mention that you are a mental projector, which is super rare in human design.
Okay,
Did you know that?
I did not know that. I know it's
I
a
know it.
projector. Not realize that was rare.
Yeah, the mental part. So there's projector that can be self-projected or splenic or mental. And I was looking at your chart and I was like, I've never seen a chart like this. I don't know everything about human design. I have a friend that does readings, and I asked her, I was like, what can you tell me about a mental projector?
Mm.
They're very rare. You are very rare. So I'm a manifester. I thought I was kind of rare, but you're rarer. um,
Oh,
Basically, it means like your journey in life has been really about figuring things out in your head, but also as a projector, you need to have soundboards around you. So your environment's super important and who you're talking to is super important. When you have ideas, it's really important for you to say it out loud. Do you find that with yourself? Like,
yeah. I mean, I would say there's times I'm prone to overthinking. I try to keep
yeah, oh yeah,
myself from not being stuck in my head and just, hey, I'm going to figure it out by doing. I'm not going to figure it out by just being in my head. But yeah, I'd say in general, I'm pretty cerebral and try to think things
yeah.
through. And I've always heard like one of the personality type things that's book, please understand me too. I think it's the Tierstein personality disorder. And they kind of divide people into, I think it's like 85% of the population communicates in concrete terms, 15% communicate in abstract terms. And so I was one of the ones that communicated abstract terms, and it was more interested in what is possible than what's real.
Mm,
I'm like thinking about the ideas of something
yeah,
versus
yeah,
possible already exists.
yeah. And I noticed that you're an Aries sun, Sagittarius rising. Did you know what your rising sign was?
Now, I'm
Okay,
not
I'm
that
telling you.
realizing Aries, but
Aries sun, you're Sagittarius rising and a moon Pisces, which is a very spiritual sign. So, and also in your human design, you have a six line, which is part of your profile number, which is a major thing in your human design. And I have a six as well. So us sixes have three phases of life. Like your first phase of life is a lot of trial and error until like age 30. And then your second phase of life 30 to 50-ish is more of a resting, integrating what you learned in your first phase. You're still learning though. And then your third phase of life starts about 50, 53, and that's your role model phase. So right now you're 48, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of almost to that role model phase. You're in your like integrating, still trial and error stuff, but you're at, at this point where you're like really feeling good, I'm assuming.
I would say it's accurate. I mean, it's interesting. I'm thinking about it as you're saying it, but yeah, I have been, that all sounds accurate and on point. And I do feel like I'm very much aspiring to be operating as my highest self. And I've been involved in a lot of things from mindset coaching, the plant medicines to hypnotherapy. But I'm certified as a mindset coach and as a hypnotherapist, and the plant medicine is someone ongoing spiritual care.
So did something happen in your life that kind of moved you towards the spiritual side of living, or were you always kind of spiritual?
I was very into the church when I was young, and then I kind of became disillusioned with it when I moved to high school. I just found that by the moral code that was in my head, like I was like, hey, you shouldn't swear, shouldn't, shouldn't be pursuing or thinking about premarital sex. Like all of these, I was very, very square in that regard. And at times I kind of created my own bubble in junior high. If someone's, dropped an F bomb around me, I'd be like, yeah, I'd appreciate if you wouldn't use that language around me. And I just felt so self-righteous in myself that like I knew I was right. And so people would go, okay, I'm never talking to that guy. Right? I didn't have friends and stuff. But I mean, people that did hang around me didn't swear, might have acted differently around me or kind of been
Wow.
respecting of these boundaries that I was setting. And I kind of had some realizations like I'm the only person that thinks that way. Once I moved to a different environment, a different school and stuff, and it was somewhat ostracizing, but it was also just, it didn't make sense to me. I'm like, so wait, there's a God that created all these rules, and basically my persona of the world, like high 90 percentile of everyone's going to hell. I'm like, there's this very few chosen few people that are not swearing and not having real sex or doing, like, it didn't make any sense to me anymore. And yeah. And then as I kind of got older and older, I became more and more ingrained in being an atheist, and it just didn't. And I was really bitter against insurance because I was planning my whole life around it. I wanted to be a missionary. I ever asked the people who were just in the church, like, what about these kids in Africa that never heard about Jesus? So were they all going to hell? I was like, oh, damn. I'm like, why isn't everybody more concerned about this? Like, like,
Yeah.
it means an eternity. Like, who cares about this 180 years we spent here when there's an eternity at stake here? And so
Yeah.
then once when I was like, it's like, man, I was just bitter. I'm like, how are these adults who are in their 40s telling a child this stuff? And I felt like I kind of been brainwashed. And so I was really bitter against the church. And
Huh.
then I don't know what it was exactly that had the shift, but I had heard a different description just of God. And it was actually a guy, Paul Check. And I really followed him because he's like a health and fitness guru, but he does talk a lot about spirituality and stuff too. So I just thought he was brilliant on the health and fitness stuff, and was really attracted to him for that. And then I heard him talking about source and just notice, we all come from the same thing. And imagine you're this all powerful, all knowing being. It's just you there by yourself. What would you do if just exist and have something interesting going on? Like you could break off little pieces of yourself and allow these pieces to then operate autonomously. Souls of people, animals, planets, all of these things are all pieces of God that are just kind of set into motion. And then the sign of God's unconditional love for all of the creation and effectively himself, is that these things are allowed to operate as they are. So kids can get cancer, there could be wars, all these horrible things could happen. So people are like, how is there a God that lets this happen? And it's like, well, it's organically happened over time as things have manifested, and that's that's the unconditional love that everything is allowed to happen. But at the same time, we're all connected and all one. And that as we leave this life, and some people need to go back after that soup of all being connected. And yeah, I'm inclined to believe that we live multiple lives. And I would say no idea. I don't really have experiences of like memories of past lives, any of that stuff. But I've seen a lot of that. You talked about with therapy and stuff. It's a regular part of practice. And my model of how things work, I have a blind mentoring to see it might be, and I don't know if it's true, but in my model, I would say I lean towards past lives.
Yeah. I Do you hear that again? I feel like we're being visited. I was gonna say, on the astrology, I ran a friendship bond between us, and it does say that we have a past life together.
Oh wow!
You can run that with people, and because in astrology, if your south node tells you where you came from, like from a past life, like it'll tell you the kind of energy you had in your past life and where you're coming from. And so if somebody's south node aligns with some part of your other chart, then it means that you guys have had a past life. I don't know. I'm
I,
really interested in past lives or parallel lives, whatever you want to call it. I think it's so intriguing.
yeah, I was I did an ayahuasca ceremony once, and the shaman, when he was talking to everybody, he actually spoke Spanish, and there's an interpreter there, and he was saying like, in past lives, we've all done medicine together before. Yeah, and I was just kind of like, I was like, whoa, like I don't know, like
Yeah.
is that true? Like if that's true, that's wild,
Yeah.
But it was just the notion of like that it could be true, just felt like exciting to me.
Yeah, I know. I mean, all of us that are on this spiritual path have been shamans somewhere, in our timeline and in the world, we've been some kind of shaman. So I believe it. Yeah. I did my mushroom journey on Sunday.
Yeah, how was that?
It was good, but remember I kept asking you, am I going to get nauseous? And you're like, no, no, you didn't. Every man that I've asked was like, no, you don't get nauseous. But every woman that I've asked said yes. So
Uh,
I did get nauseous, so I didn't go like, I was doing a gradual lead in from 1 gram to
mhm.
2 grams. I didn't do like a hero dose or anything. And she came to ask me if I wanted, to go up to 2 grams. And I said, you know what? I'm feeling so nauseous. I think I'm just going to take it easy today. So I only did 1 gram. I don't know. What have you done when you've done it?
I mean, I've gone up to 10.
Whoa. So wow, you've met God? You met the divine? You had like a divine
Well,
experience.
no experience in ego death in that,
Wow.
yeah, it will be. I mean, historically, if I'm going into a plant medicine ceremony, I'm trying to go into it with an intention, but also
Mhm.
like an open mind to kind of see what the medicine has to show me at this point in time. But I feel like it helps to have a focus for it and to be very grounded and stuff going into it. Yeah. It was a roller coaster ride at times of like, extreme. Like at first I was kind of nervous about it. I was kind of like, oh, this is an old friend. This is just going to be the
Mhm.
time of my life. That, it kind of is a
Yeah.
roller coaster ride. And again, at the time, someone I was dating was kind of overseeing me through that process, and we had talked about whether or not we were going to continue our relationship by the end of that trip. I knew, like, yeah, we're usually if you're talking about whether or not you should break up, you're probably going to break up, but.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
Wow.
kind of, it was clear. There's that piece like, yeah, that's
Wow.
the right move. But yeah,
Wow.
it was intense, but I was definitely glad I did it. Like, and I would do it again. I didn't regret it in any way, but I
Mhm.
just,
Yeah.
from my perspective, psychedelics are like a mirror. But it's so much easier to see someone else's bullshit than it is to see your own. But
Yeah.
in that process, I feel like I'm able to view myself in the third person for ways to kind of see everybody's got blind spots. And like sometimes you see these things that were in your blind spot that come out to you. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Like, oh, wow. And then when I
Yeah.
did this affected other people in these ways that I wasn't really considering at the
Yeah.
time. Or kind of having like, I know like my daughter's experience and why it was largely dependent on me and how I show up for her and what I plan I structure things for us, but I just like there's another layer of depth of like that responsibility that I have to this other human being that's
Yeah.
supremely important to me. And am I making that the appropriate priority at all these times? Or, everyone makes mistakes at times. And in general, I have like a great relationship with the daughter, and I love things like that and stuff that just get me from ways it's like the top rate is my highest self, like you did hit me some stuff, it's going, ooh, that one hurts. I made this mistake in the past. I didn't even really realize it, but now I see it. And so I have to take that in. And I feel like a lot of times people have a bad experience, and it certainly it could be they have experienced it in the wrong environment, or they weren't really grounded going into it, and they had this anxiety kind of going in the process. It's going to just amplify those things, but it can also just be that they're not all happy if they see it.
So what are the big things that you've learned through your journeys in plant medicine?
Yeah, I feel like every time it's a constant evolution. There's times that you'd be reminded of something, but I feel like it's always different. Um,
Depending on where
and
you are in
my
life.
first ayahuasca there, I remember one of like it was somewhat gentle, and like I kept getting like different downloads. Like I'd be out on a run, like a week afterwards, and like I'd have new realizations kind of coming in. And sometimes it'd just be little stuff like,
Yeah.
hey, this thing that happened 10 years ago or 20 years ago, this little moment, like I just a little perspective shift. Whether it was
Mhm.
something that at the time seemed bad, it's like, hey, actually, that was really helpful because that pushed you in this direction. And then you may not have ended up here if you hadn't had this not the most pleasant experience here. You know, and sometimes it'd just be like i- in the ceremony, there's a couple of women out like dancing and stuff and glad. It's like, it's important that everybody let their light shine and that you let yourself be heard. And I want to model that to my daughter and help her to show up in that way too. And I remember too that like that was something as a kid, like if I was sitting in church and somebody went up and sang, I used to, my mom always liked to sing and stuff. And like, I was like, yeah, it's important that I go tell them like I enjoy your singing and thank you for
Aw.
sharing that and stuff. And I just at some point in time, it kind of after being in Chicago and being like one of 9 million people, it's kind of like, yeah, like they're going to hear it from other people. They don't need to hear it from me too. And it's just kind of not, I guess maybe it is hiding in some ways, or just they feel like my voice isn't necessarily that important.
Right.
And it's sort of like, no, your voice is as important as anyone's voice, and everybody's voice is important, and it's important that you express yourself and don't minimize yourself. Whether it's in your self talk or anything, and don't
Uh-huh.
don't minimize yourself, and be very very mindful of how you speak to yourself in your head.
Yeah.
You shouldn't treat your friends or child or anybody else nicer than you treat yourself. You gotta love yourself first so that your cup is full so that you can give to other people. Um, and
Yeah.
I think just embracing that to me, all personal development at the end of the day is about self love.
Yeah.
And that's really the key of it. If you're to put it down to one thing, it's all about self.
So what kind of challenges have you had? I know we spoke on the phone about you've been through many relationships, lots of lessons. What did you learn about yourself through your relationships?
Yeah, I've been divorced a couple of times, and I've had, I guess, a number of relationships that ranged from one that but once I went through my second divorce, that was where it was very clear for me, like, hey, the commonality in your dysfunctional relationships is you, because I in both of my marriages, I felt like it wasn't that I sort of found a way to make it work so much. Is it just like I don't think we're the best fit for each other? And it's like, why did I make this commitment? Why was I doing this? And not that I was perfect in the relationships, but I had a realization that I was a people pleaser, and I that was something that was kind of one of the first things that was on my mind. The back of my mind is kind of why am I a people pleaser? And um, yeah, and they just sort of it sat with me for a while, and then actually I was at an event with a guy named David Baer. He lives in an event here at Ramrock called the Powerful Living Experience. It's a good event. It's free. And he's the guy who got certified in the mindset coaching. with and think for some other kind of thing that really civilization, the way he did stuff. I felt like this wasn't, there was nothing in his content about specifically people pleasing. And when I was looking at the different stops, I write down goals and everything. Like none of that never came up. And then, like on day 2 or 3 in the morning before I went to this all day event, I went for a morning run, and suddenly just hit me. Like, I knew my dad loved me and he told me he loved me, and my dad was super present, and he was a wonderful dad, great example of masculinity and super honest. Took ask about a dad, but he was a little bit critical at times too. And we were never like buddy kind of friends. It was more like, well, my dad, he's an authority. He was never trying to be like my friend. He was trying to be my dad. And I didn't know if he really liked it. I knew he loved me, but I didn't know if he liked it. And so I could see how I prioritized my life. I really wanted people to like me. And yeah, I remember mentioning this to my brother, and he's like, everybody likes people to like them. What are you talking about? Yeah, and I'm like, no, but I'm like, it was like a major priority for me. Like, it's like I was prioritizing other people liking me above like achieving my own goals and like trying to be on my own mission and stuff. Yeah, and he's like, oh yeah, that's not good. I'm like, exactly. And like, but that's the way that shows up in relationship is not good. Because all of a sudden now, like my star, if you're the man, you're bringing the masculine energy to the relationship. Like a man, woman needs to take up with another, and it needs to be leading. And if my North Star that I'm meeting that's still, I want her to be happy, you're not really leading. Right? So you can't lead a group and be like, I just want everybody in the group to be happy. Like it's not
Yeah.
going to work. You have to have a direction, and then they try to support everyone's experience. But I think, yeah, that was for me, like I said, and I think that's true for all personal development. It's about self-love, but being in a place where I was filling up my own cup. So I didn't need to do things for other people and have them tell me, like, oh, it is just a class for you. I can tell myself that, and I can still be considerate of other people and be kind and, be a good friend. But yeah, it wasn't my end all be all, and I don't need it.
Yeah. Do you remember when you were in high school how, like, I'm talking from experience with me, and when I life coach kids a lot, so I tell them when I was in high school, it was a bad thing to love yourself. It was called conceited, vain. Like, if there was somebody that was, oh, that person's all into themselves, right? Like they love themselves too
Yes,
much.
yes.
So
And I actually, I'm sorry, go ahead.
we were taught not to love ourselves basically because of that. We didn't want to look like we thought we were all that.
I remember having that experience specifically when I very first came home from college, went back to my hometown, because like I just thought like I was spraying the guy. I'm like, you guys would not believe the parties we're having at college. Like, it's crazy. Like, there's all these people there. There's all this, there's all this. You got to smoke machine. You got to to me, it's just like, this is so cool. Like, you guys should come visit and come to one of these
Yeah.
parties, or, some of these guys were in high school. Like, you could go to school here. You could go, and I'm sure this exists all over the place, but it's just like, it blew my mind that like it was cooler than I had fathomed it would be.
Mhm.
Like when I went there and went into this environment, and I remember like initially I was just very animated and talking about, and like people thought I was bragging that like, oh, you're doing all this cool stuff. And I remember seeing like somebody from my class, and she was I was talking to her, and she very casually was like, so I hear you're an asshole now. It's like, what? What are you talking about? It took me a little while to put that, but then that did make me want to kind of like, hey, I want to tone it down. I don't want people to
Yeah. So you
think
dimmed your
I think
light.
I'm
Yeah.
cool. And no, that was, yeah, I did have, I was promoting, David Bear's event a couple of years ago. I had that realization. It's like, if you had told me before, like, you should be your own favorite person, I'd think like, what kind of like narcissistic,
Yeah.
ego-filled thing is that? And then now it's like, it's the opposite. It's like,
Yeah.
if you're not your own favorite person, why not?
Yeah.
Like that's a good place to start. Are you not honest with people? Or are you not this? Or you're not like, what are you doing that you don't fully love yourself, like that's a place to dig in because you should
Totally.
be your own kind of person. Actually, the analogy that I love to use with people is like, imagine you met someone and just as you're talking to them, you're like, oh wait, you love this band? I love this band. Oh wait, you love this? I love this movie. I love this. I love this color. I love, they wear the same style clothes you do. Just they like the same sports. If it is just, and you
Yeah.
like,
I like
you've
that.
got to be kidding me. Like we just became best friends. Like it's amazing. I don't know that I've ever met someone where it's just like everything is exactly the same. But if I met that person, it would be my instant new best friend. It's like
Yeah.
everybody has that. It's you. It's when you
Hmm.
get to spend time with yourself. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to consider anybody else. It's all in alignment.
Hmm.
And that's what actually someone I dated a while ago, she was the epitome of self-love, and she loved spending time by herself. And it was like I saw times where she might have plans to go do something, like the plans got canceled, and she was like, oh yeah, I get some more me time. And my favorite person, and she was
Yeah.
serious, and it was a good model for me because I do feel that way now. Like when stuff like that happens, like it's a different thing. And I think it's confidence comes from being able to trust yourself and
Yeah.
trust
Totally.
what you believe in yourself. So if I set a goal, I'm gonna work towards it. I'm gonna do that for myself. I'm gonna manifest the reality I want for myself. Because whatever reality you're experiencing, it's a direct reflection of what's happening inside you. It's not an immediate turn or shift, right? It takes some
Right.
time to literally manifest everything you want in life. It's like
Yeah.
a lifetime, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times it takes years to have like significant shifts.
Hmm.
And I do feel like when you were kind of talking about that at the beginning, I feel like I've been making shifts for a number of years. And I do feel like I'm experiencing the fruit of that and keep picking up more momentum
Yeah.
in all areas of life, really. Um, but yeah, it's recently,
Yeah.
I've had some nice wins that, yeah, kind of reflecting on what's happened, not just the past month or so, but for the last couple of years. And it's been a big positive shift for me, kind of being in that work. And I think you get out of stuff when you put into it. But if you really put a lot of effort and focus on personal development, it's a huge payback to invest in yourself.
Definitely, definitely. And it doesn't even have to be big things that happen. It's just the insight you get and the feeling of gratitude you have every day when you're constantly working on your inner self and then you start to see it in your outer world. It's amazing. Well, what about jujitsu? That's one of your major hobbies, right?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I'm on a little bit of a break from it. Now I do have, got a bit of cauliflower here on both my ears. I got about 7, 8 years of jiu-jitsu. Um,
Oh,
yeah, I love it. I mean, it forces you to get comfortable in uncomfortable situations. It's a big adrenaline dump. It's
hmm,
very humbling as well as somebody that's going to be able to smash it. And some days you're the hammer nail. Uh, but it's a lot of fun.
hmm.
Initially, when I started it, I didn't really have a good stretching practice and some of the recovery things. And now I've got a stretching practice I like and a cold tub and some other things. I'm expecting the second half of this year to get back into it, but it also helped me with my competitive itch. I used to box, and then once I kind of decided wanted to retire from getting punched in the head, I wanted to find a new competitive outlet, and that's jiu-jitsu
I
is
see.
a good one. And I feel like as I start to age out of like, I don't know if I really want to get joint locked and choked anymore, then I'll probably focus more on my running.
Mm. All right, cool. What other hobbies do you have?
Uh, Boxing's a big one. And my garage is a boxing gym, and I have some friends that I train out of there. And um, but I feel like Joe Rogan talked about jujitsu being the martial art you do against yourself. And I feel like boxing is the martial art you can do by yourself, kind of like basketball. I mean, you can practice
Hmm.
on your dribbling, your shooting, and stuff,
Hmm.
get exercise and work on your skills all by yourself. The boxing, you got speed bag, double end bag, heavy bag, jump rope. I kind of think of running as being part of the boxing training, shadow boxing.
Yeah,
Um,
wow. You're very
and
physically.
there's like you can set up all these different little stations, and usually I'll do that with some calisthenics or kettlebells and stuff too. So you're kind of switching between like a skill activity and then like a functional strength activity, and it's a great workout. And it just to me, it's a lot more interesting to practice a skill versus like counting reps in a weight room. It's more functional.
Yeah.
And yeah, ultimately, that's what I got to a quite point in my 20s. I kind of asked myself, like, what am I trying to do? What am I working out for? And
Mhm.
I take like a karate class. I realized I didn't know how to throw a punch. And like in my mind, I was like, I can take care of myself. Say, bench press 270 pounds. It doesn't really mean anything other than telling another dude how much you can bench press. Like it doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything. And so once I kind of got disillusioned with that and got into boxing, and then yeah, I've still never really been in a fight outside of the competition, but the few times that it starts to look like it may hit the fan, I didn't feel nervous about it. I felt very comfortable standing my ground because I had a plan and I knew what I would do. And boxing and jiu-jitsu is a nice combination for that. And also just if something were to happen, like you get used to with jiu-jitsu or boxing, it's like you clap hands and you go. It's like, wow, you are protect yourself, high intensity go. And most people aren't ready for that. Like you're not going to be able to just go and drop a hat. When you train and do that, maybe 5 times a week for
Wow.
in 20 years. You're in a
Yeah.
position where I could turn it on like that if something happens. So that makes you relaxed. I'm not
I,
worried. I can do it. Nobody wants to say it. One thing you don't want is to be sucker punch. And, so you have to be very mindful of distance. Like if there's someone if there's a risk of something weird happening, I'm not letting them get within arm's length of me because that's the
yeah.
one scenario. That's their chance to sucker punch me.
Yeah.
But
I can see
or
how
if they're
that's.
bigger, and there's a lot of people that can do yeah. But
Do you read novels at all?
I usually read nonfiction, honestly. I don't. I
Okay, because
find things like,
one of my favorite books is I'm not into boxing at all. Like I'm not at all, but one of my favorite novels is called The Power of One, and it's about a kid that grows up as a boxer. It's really good.
yeah,
Really good. If you ever want to pick up a novel, I suggest you do that.
all
Lots
right.
of really good internal lessons going on. So, well, what would you say you do on a regular like a daily basis that helps you stay balanced?
I meditate most days, so and usually for me that's kind of a combination. Like I'll do some latte, and do some breath work. Sometimes I listen to like a guided hypnosis, just doing like 15 minutes long. Sometimes I'll just kind of sit and focus on what I want to get out of this day, or and just trying to be present at the moment and just trying to get myself into a more relaxed state. Um, or bringing, if I'm working out in the morning, that's a good way for me to start my day. It just makes everything a little bit chill when I know I got that done and out of the way. Um, and I also just like, if you look at the people who are the busiest in the world, and you like, what is the president do? I'm the current president because I don't think works out, but like Obama, Bush, former presidents, they wait. That's the first thing they do in the day. It's like they're not busy in the president. So like that's the
Yeah.
only way you make sure you get it in. Otherwise, but also I can tell you in the morning and you don't get it in, and kids are sneaking in at noon. Kids are sneaking in right after work. Like you have more chances you still try to get it in.
Yeah, totally.
But I generally have a rule, and I like to drink a sweat every day. Like you, sometimes I'll cheat and just go on the sauna or something. But I
Right.
really like the contrast therapy too, sauna and cold tub. Okay, if you're experiencing that.
I I definitely agree. It's still important for us to move the body every day, doing something. And I think sweating is good. Yeah. I can't remember. Oh yeah. Do you have any big dreams for the future?
Yeah, I mean, I would. I like to find a way to work for myself over time, kind of combining mindset coaching with hypnotherapy and also men's coaching. So I'm a part of a couple different men's groups here in the Austin area that I really, really enjoy and made some great connections, but also just trying to understand like what's helpful to people in terms like
Mhm.
if we're going to do a meeting, what's the structure of the meeting look like? How much do people share versus how much they're being some kind of the teaching and what how that how those dynamics work. So at some point I could see myself leading my own group or maybe helping expand in the groups I'm already in, and just having the autonomy to work for myself at a different level. I've also had some connections with some boxing stuff, and specifically been looking at making speed bag platforms. Is something that I just think it's really cool. But there's also the speed bags, like the little bag that goes super fast. Like usually when you
Uh-huh.
see people like boxers do it, they hit it once and it hits 3 times. So
Yeah.
every time one time you hit it, and
Mhm.
then there's different ways that you can hit it. And some guys are super, super talented at it. I've kind of been building my skills there, but we have some like an idea, and I'm partnering with an artist friend of mine that we're going to stain this like natural wood and create these really badass and
Cool.
glorious speed bag platforms. And my dream is that's something that could kind of be like a showpiece that you could have in a man cave, or I'm planning to actually put one in my living room. Just have it out
Cool.
there. If people want to play with it, they can play with it, or they can just sit there and look nice.
That's great.
But that's part of it. And I would like to have a homestead one day
Mhm.
too. So I'm planning
Me too.
to find a way to get some land and be able to raise my own food and
Yeah.
have a little more autonomy. Some of that. I've always been a health nut and very mindful of where I put my body, and it sounds exciting to grow my own food and to tell where it comes from and kind of
Yeah. I know
manage
that.
the whole process when it's nice.
Yeah, I would love to have it. And I think so many people since 2020 have decided like, we need to form these communities and grow our own food and, buy eggs from our neighbor or whatever. Well, I'll let you get on your way and go pick up your daughter and have a fabulous weekend. Thank you for being here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we do the same. I can. I think I appreciate it.
Thanks.